Hello, everybody, and welcome to my channel. Sasha here. How is everybody doing today? And thank you for joining me. If you would like to give me a thumbs up, a little like, it really helps my algorithm. And I like my rhythm to be going up. So today I am going to be telling you a little story about my night with Leonardo DiCaprio. Now, Leonardo DiCaprio is one of the people that is on the Diddy list, but I'm not going to tell you anything um, about any freak offs. There was no freak offs, but I am going to tell you about how this happened and how these kind of stories and nights were happening and how they were being coerced and how people were making money out of them. So, this is how the story goes. Well, I was clubbing a lot in London at this time. This was taking you back to 1999. I was a page three model and I was living in Essex, but I used to go out in the West End and club in London. I used to work in London as well. And a lot of the studios obviously are all in London. So basically I was a glamour girl in London. And my best friend had met this black guy, tall. I would describe him as he looked like he'd come out of some kind of basketball team in the States. As he was tall, lanky, and I'm pretty sure his name was Tim. I think I'm right. But anyway, I have no idea what his surname is. I didn't know if I knew then. I might have, my old mate Cal will probably know. But anyway, he had invited us to a few swanky nights. He knew a few people. Kind of, I'm trying to remember. I hope it wasn't Puff Daddy or somebody that he was mates with that he was going on about. I can't remember. But anyway, he was friends with people in LA. That was where he was from. And he was hanging around the West End and he had befriended Cal and me. And so it was, in fact, was I a pastry model? Yeah, I was a pastry model by this time. Of course I was. Um, and just getting my facts right. He called us, well, he called my mate one afternoon as she was working in the city and said, Leonardo DiCaprio is in town. And at this point, I was a massive fan of Leo. In fact, you know, he is an incredible actor. He was actually a child star as well. And this is prevalent, I think, to understanding what's going on in Hollywood. He was beautiful blonde child star. And I watched him in Who's Been Eating Gilbert Grape and Basketball Diaries, and obviously the big famous one being Titanic. In fact, I started crying in Titanic in the cinema. As soon as Leo walked down the stairs in his tuxedo, I was crying because I knew he was going to die at the end because I know the story of Titanic. Anyway, so Leo was in town. So Leonardo DiCaprio was in town because had just finished filming The Beach, being the film that is set in Thailand on a magical Thai beach. They'd just finished filming that, and apparently there was a rap party in London. So I don't know if there's any scenes in London or why they were in London for this rap party, but this rap party was in London, and he said, I've got two tickets to come to this private party with Leo. Would you two like to come? And we were like, oh yeah. Um, because it depends who you're kind of looking up to at this stage. So some people, if they've been like, yeah, Diddy's in town, then people would be like, yeah, yeah, jump on that because they were digging Diddy. But I wasn't. But Leonardo DiCaprio, I was like, oh my God, he's amazing. I'd love to meet him. I absolutely loved him. I wanted to marry him and all of these things. So there's me and my mate. We get right dolled up because we're going out west and we're told, we're going to some right fancy places. So you've got to be all dressed up. So we did, and we got our corsets on, I believe. And the first venue we were told to meet at was 57 Jermyn Street, which is just well, it's just Mayfair basically. And it's a private members club. I'd never been there before. And we were told to meet there. So we got there before Leo was there. And I remember sitting there in this kind of like like the kind of cubby holes in bar things with the seats. And I was sitting in there and I was like, is Leo really going to walk in the door? I was like, swoon, swoon time. And and so he did. And then walked Leo with a few of his crew. And he started kind of socializing around with us, but I didn't get a chance to talk to him. He was talking to a few people, but there was only like, I don't know, maybe 20 of us at this point. And so then we were like, right, we're going to China White's now. And China White's is this hangout in um it's just off Regent Street, Piccadilly Circus. And it was known a celebrity hangout. So it was kind of where the footballers went, all of the it crowd in the it crowd time, and all of the models and all of the TV stars and all of these kind of people would go. And if you look back at papers from that time, you will see how pictures of people like Jordan and all of this were always like the big like, oh, look at them falling out of China Whites at whatever time, and they'd be like, and yeah, everybody was falling out of China Whites. Anyway, I've been to China Whites a few times before this, but wasn't really my kind of scene at all. In fact, I couldn't afford to buy a drink in there. So then you have to wait for somebody to buy you a drink. And yeah, there's loads of guys that are going to buy you a drink, but um, yeah, they're always the braggy type. Like, "Oh, I've got so much money, you're a page three model, this kind of thing." And it never really like floated my boat. Anyway, I was just happy to be there hanging out with Leonardo DiCaprio. So off we went to China White, and I remember being in China White and there being a scenario where somehow somebody knocked a drink over and it went all over Leo. And I was like, oh my God, I'm glad it wasn't me. And and then I also just remember him being really, really gentlemanly about it and getting up and going, no, 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 it's fine. And I have to say, I've met a lot of kind of famous people, as it were. And Leonardo DiCaprio was very, very polite. And that's not to say that everybody polite that's got charisma is a good guy. I really do know that. But I can only say that, he was very, very polite and really nice and wasn't coming over that arrogant at all. He actually came over quite like, yeah. I'm Leonardo DiCaprio and I'm in London tonight, and how is everybody? And that's how he came over at that point. So that was it. And then I had I think it was probably my first experience of being with a superstar when the Paps are outside. And so we were told that the Paps are outside. We were all given umbrellas. And then we were like, right, we're going to run out the back door and then we're going to jump in the taxi and then we're going to the Met Bar. I was like, right, okay, let's go. So that's what we did. We got out and all the paps like da, 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 and we jumped in the cab and off we went to the Met Bar. Now the Met Bar was the it place again because it was the bar at the bottom of the Metropolitan Hotel at the bottom of at Park Lane and Hyde Park Corner. Right next to the Dorchester, this is the hotel of area of London. And the Met was kind of the end place to go. And it was actually really hard to get in. And I think I tried to get in a couple of times and been told to like F off, you're not on the list, your name's not down. But I was with Leo this night, so I was definitely getting in. And so we went into the Met. So by this time, it's like, I know, maybe 2, 3 in the morning, something like this. So we're in the Met. And here's my saving grace. My saving grace is this. I was driving. And so, because the fact I was always driving, I was always basically not really having much to drink and kind of steadying myself with maybe a few waters and just not drinking too much and eating, or, if I was driving, I wasn't really drinking. And so, for that reason, I always have my car around. So, I'd actually jumped out of China White's gone, jumped into the car while all the rest of them had got in a cab, and me and Cal and my mate and somebody else, I think, had just got in the car and we'd gone to the Met. And so we're now at the Met, bottom of the Metropolitan Hotel, and this is where Leo is staying. And so we're all in the bar there. And then it's like, do you want to come up to the penthouse? Do you want to come up to the room? And it's like, we've got a penthouse up there, we'll have some drinks, the normal things. So like, yeah, of course. So, because, that can sound a bit, right, dodgy, but mm, I've spent my life in hotel room parties. I've spent a lot of hotel room parties. I've never had orgy in any of them. Um, I've been to some really, really nice kind of um apartment parties and villa parties that have not been just pure degradation or anything like that. So yeah, I was fully up for that. And was that was it. I remember going up in the lift and going into the penthouse and like, wow, this is a nice penthouse, like looking out over Hyde Park. Um, and I'm sitting there with Leonardo DiCaprio, and there's a couple of other girls that didn't know, my mate, and then a few other guys. And I just remember like it's starting to really get towards like sun coming up. I can't remember exactly what time of the year it was, but it's getting towards the sun coming up, and you know, people get quite drunk, and then I remember like somebody going off to a bedroom, and I didn't really think much of it, obviously at the time. Um, and then you would think that I would have been falling over Leo, but in my weird and wonderful mind, I didn't want to be one of those girls that's like, Leo, Leo, take me. Like, because it's just not how I operate or work. So I didn't, and I wasn't being like that. And I just generally was very, very interested to talk to him. And so by this time, it had all been busy all night. We're now sitting in the hotel. I just remember sitting there on the floor and looking up at him and thinking, God, this is surreal. And going, what's it like being Leonardo DiCaprio? And I just remember him looking back at me going, it's pretty cool. And and oh, I wish I could remember more, but I was a bit like starry-eyed, surprised, like girl looking at him and thinking, oh, what do I say now? And 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 I was really like, and it's starting to kind of get light, and that's my like cut off zone. Normally, I'm like, now the light monster is saying it's time to go to bed and refresh yourself, dear Sasha, and it's time that like we all start to look a little bit ghoulish, and I think we should all go home. And And so I didn't know what to do. And I was like torn. I'm like, do I throw myself at him or not? And so, and then this other girl just came over and hovered over, and then she was talking to him. And the next thing I know, I saw them wander off to the bedroom. So nothing wrong with that, obviously. It's up to them. And so it was this point that me and Cal were like, right, let's go then. So we made an exit, and I remember walking out of the Metropolitan uh, hotel lobby and leaving my number for Leo just in case he wanted it. Just in case. I didn't ever get a call, funnily enough, but never mind. But the interesting part of this is that the next day I get a call, and these calls I used to get quite regularly, but this was kind of different. So the calls that I used to get from the journalists when I was a pastry model went like this. Hi, where have you been? What have you been up to? Shagged any footballers? Got any stories? That's how it went. And I'd be like, well, I went to see Blue Tones the other night. I'm like, oh, what happened there? Oh, you did anything? Did you go backstage? Did you spend, did you snog him? Have you got any stories? Anything we can do? Got any pictures? And this was kind of thing that went on, and all the girls that were glamour girls, or basically the glamour girls, used to get this because we were kind of like the honey traps for the stories. I come to realize. And so after my evening night and evening with Leonardo, the next day I got a call from the News of the World saying that they'd seen me with Leonardo the previous night and would I like to sell my story? And I hold on, I have to get rid of my husband because mm, I can't talk right now. And so they'd obviously found that it was me, whether Tim had been tipped off, whether it was just from seeing me outside, but I wasn't that well known as a page three model, really. So it's quite surprising that, like, the News of the World, because it was normally the People or the Sport or those kind of journalists that are phoning up with those other requests for had I shagged any footballer stories. So when the News of the World phoned in and said that they'd seen me with him and would I like to sell my story, and I could sell my kiss and tell, and they just automatically assumed I'd spent the night with him and they'd seen me coming out of the Met Hotel and blah blah blah. And I just felt like I just couldn't do it because I liked him too much. Like I was like, mm, and it was so tempting because when you need money and like all it is a story and you think maybe it's harmless. It was so tempting, but I didn't. I didn't. I didn't do any like false kiss and tell and didn't say anything and didn't do it. And then a week later, I was on my way to a modeling job and I was sitting in the airport. I was actually been put in business class because it was a job. I was sitting there in business class and I was looking and I was like, open to the News of the World. And there was the girl that had gone into the bedroom with him, front page of the News of the World, my night with Leonardo DiCaprio. And that was it. So whether Leo knew that was happening or whether he didn't, I don't know. But that is how selling stories worked, how getting people into trouble. And the more scandalous the things that people get up to, the bigger the stories for these people to make money out of. It's people like Murdoch and the Sun, obviously, and the People and the tabloid press used to be much worse than it is now, or is it just as bad and it's just even more coercive? I don't know, but they have been selling stories on us for a very, very, very long time, and it's all been very manipulative. I didn't realize how manipulative it was at all. It can sound like it was obvious, but I was just happy to be going out with Leonardo DiCaprio for the night. And if you don't believe me, to show you. Oh God. Here it is. Sasha's Titanics turned Leonardo on. Oh dear. There you go. So, like, so now you're like, well, you didn't sell your story. Well, I say I didn't sell my story, but that was a couple of years later. And I was in Ibiza and I needed some press and I needed some money. And they were like, have you got any stories? And it just so happened that I told them about that. And so they also took a picture of me with Fats and Small in the pool at Pikes. and topless, and this I sold it to the sport. The sport, yeah, because the sport would like literally write anything and just didn't care. There was no such thing as defamation, no such thing as this isn't true. The sport will write anything about anybody and not care. And so I I was a page three model still at that time, and so I sold a story about my night with Leonardo, but I didn't say I shagged him or anything like that. Just said, well, the sport said that my Titanic's turned him on. Who knows? You'd have to ask him, Leo, if you're watching. Um, Thanks for being a nice guy that night, and I hope that you aren't doing the devil's work with Diddy. That's all I can say. One love.